I think the greatest player is Michael Jordan. That's what I think. But
I agree.
LeBron is about to do something that hasn't been done in a long time, and I think he will move his name up there. But for me, it's always Dr. J and Michael Jordan, Magic and those guys.
Quite frankly, I don't really care about articles. I really don't. I don't care about stories. I don't care about podcasts and all that type of shit. They don't bother me.
When the spotlight hits the court and the crowd noise fades for a split second, moments involving LeBron James often feel heavier than an ordinary basketball storyline. Fans know that whenever LeBron decides to respond publicly, the entire sports world stops scrolling and starts paying attention. That exact situation unfolded this week after comments from Shaquille O'Neal ignited a heated debate across the basketball community. What might have initially sounded like a routine critique quickly transformed into something far bigger, as many listeners interpreted Shaq's words not simply as analysis but as a form of dismissal toward LeBron's two-decade legacy in the National Basketball Association. Instead of letting the conversation fade quietly, LeBron answered back directly and publicly, delivering a pointed response that immediately set off a media wildfire. Fans rushed to pick sides, analysts lined up on television panels, and social media exploded with reactions, turning the exchange into one of those defining moments that feels bigger than a single comment. It became a conversation about legacy, respect, and who truly has the authority to define greatness in basketball history. The controversy began when Shaq, whose dominance once defined the league and whose legacy still looms large over franchises like the Los Angeles Lakers, suggested that the modern era of basketball allows players to maintain elite performance longer than athletes could in previous generations. His argument implied that the evolving rules, reduced physicality, and changing style of play may blur what true dominance looks like compared to the eras that came before. To many listeners, that remark sounded like a subtle critique of LeBron's longevity, hinting that staying productive into a player's late 30s might be easier in today's game than it once was. Shaq's delivery carried the unmistakable tone that has always defined his commentary: old school, blunt, and unapologetic. For someone like LeBron, who has spent his entire career navigating constant scrutiny, the comment landed less like constructive analysis and more like a challenge to the legitimacy of his accomplishments. Rather than responding quietly, LeBron fired back with the confidence of a still-active superstar who continues to redefine the limits of longevity and productivity. His reply wasn't framed as a humble defense but as a forceful reminder of what he has achieved, carrying franchises, reshaping narratives, and influencing how the NBA markets its global superstars. The tension between the two legends also reflects a deeper cultural divide within basketball. Shaq has long represented a generation that values overwhelming physical dominance, the kind of force that demands double teams, intimidation, and sheer power in the paint. Throughout his broadcasting career, he has frequently criticized modern players for what he perceives as a lack of toughness, whether questioning massive contracts or mocking styles of play that prioritize finesse over brute strength. His rhetoric consistently echoes the belief that the league today is softer than it once was and that accomplishments should be judged against the harsher standards of earlier eras. LeBron's career, however, represents the evolution of the sport itself. His greatness is defined not only by strength but also by versatility, intelligence, and adaptability across multiple generations of teammates and opponents. That contrast makes the disagreement more than a personal spat. It becomes a debate about how basketball should measure greatness in a changing game. When LeBron responded, he addressed what he sees as a recurring problem in sports discourse: the constant shifting of goalposts. Critics sometimes frame longevity as if it diminishes a player's achievements rather than enhancing them. LeBron pushed back by pointing to tangible evidence of sustained excellence, emphasizing milestones that cannot simply be dismissed as products of a softer era. One of the clearest examples is his historic scoring production, including becoming the first player in league history to surpass the 40,000-point mark, an achievement requiring not just talent but extraordinary durability, conditioning, and adaptability over more than 2 decades. Records like that force observers to confront the scale of his career in objective terms. Numbers accumulated over such a long span cannot exist without elite performance year after year, playoff run after playoff run, and constant evolution as the league itself changes around a player. The controversy also intersects with the current situation surrounding the Lakers organization. As the franchise continues navigating roster adjustments, trade rumors, and the challenge of balancing immediate championship hopes with long-term planning, every public comment about LeBron carries added weight. If a legend like Shaq questions the nature of LeBron's dominance, it creates a complicated public relations dynamic for a team still built around him. At the same time, LeBron's response serves as a signal not just to critics but to executives, analysts, and fans about how he wants his career to be interpreted while it is still unfolding. Unlike younger players who sometimes react emotionally to criticism, LeBron has spent years mastering the rhythm of the media cycle. He understands that controversy can become motivation and that performance ultimately reshapes narratives more effectively than arguments. This clash between Shaq and LeBron therefore extends beyond one televised exchange. It represents a generational conversation about how basketball history is written. Shaq's perspective reflects a time when dominance was measured largely through physical intimidation and championship dominance in the paint. LeBron's career embodies a modern philosophy in which versatility, playmaking, scoring, and longevity combine to create a new template for greatness. Both perspectives contain elements of truth, which is precisely why the debate resonates so strongly with fans. As long as legends from different eras continue sharing their opinions while active superstars continue rewriting record books, these conversations will remain central to basketball culture. In the end, the real outcome of this exchange will depend on what happens next on the court. If LeBron channels the criticism into another remarkable playoff run, Shaq's remarks may eventually look like fuel that ignited yet another chapter of greatness. If the Lakers struggle, critics may claim the comments foreshadowed a decline. That uncertainty is part of what makes sports drama so compelling. The debate isn't only about statistics or championships, it's about how different generations interpret dominance, resilience, and legacy. And as long as iconic figures like Shaquille O'Neal and LeBron James continue to shape the conversation, moments like this will keep reigniting one of the most passionate arguments in basketball: how we truly define greatness in the NBA. That's why this back and forth between Shaquille O'Neal and LeBron James goes far beyond petty gossip or a quick viral headline. In reality, it represents another chapter in the long, ongoing argument about how greatness should be measured in basketball history. For decades, fans, analysts, and former players have debated the standards that define true dominance, whether it's championships, individual statistics, cultural impact, or longevity. When someone publicly says they would choose LeBron in that debate, it often sparks an immediate follow-up question. Does that mean older legends and their era are being dismissed? Critics sometimes frame the discussion as a clash between generations, asking whether supporters of modern stars fail to respect the values of the past. But the conversation doesn't stay confined to television studios or podcast microphones. Moments like these ripple through the entire National Basketball Association, influencing how players, coaches, and fans interpret criticism and success. Younger players across the league watch these televised debates closely. For them, exchanges between iconic figures become real-time examples of how to handle public scrutiny. If LeBron's response is interpreted as the correct approach, it could encourage rising stars to defend their reputations more openly and forcefully when their achievements are questioned. That kind of reaction might normalize athletes speaking directly about their legacy while they are still competing. On the other hand, if Shaq's perspective about respecting old-school standards gains traction, rookies and younger veterans may feel pressure to show more deference to the legends who built the league before them. In that way, the conversation becomes a form of cultural transmission within the NBA. The attitudes that shape locker rooms, how players respond to criticism, how they discuss greatness, and how they acknowledge past generations, can all shift based on these public moments. Ultimately, the debate circles back to the core question that every basketball fan eventually faces. Was Shaq offering an honest critique shaped by his generational experience, or did his comments underestimate the full scope of LeBron's accomplishments? Likewise, was LeBron's response a necessary defense of a career that has redefined the sport, or did it risk fueling even deeper divisions in the GOAT discussion? The answers may depend largely on what happens next on the court. If LeBron leads his team on another dominant playoff run, the criticism could quickly look misplaced, reinforcing the idea that his longevity and adaptability remain extraordinary. But if the Los Angeles Lakers struggle when the postseason arrives, some observers may revisit Shaq's comments as if they were a prediction rather than a provocation. That uncertainty is part of what makes sports narratives so compelling. In basketball, the meaning of any moment often changes depending on what follows it. Fans eventually choose a side, bringing statistics, highlights, championships, and personal memories as evidence. Supporters of LeBron point to his milestones, his ability to evolve through multiple eras, and the historical consistency of his dominance. Supporters of older standards emphasize the importance of context, physicality, and how the game itself has changed over time. Either way, the exchange between Shaquille O'Neal and LeBron James represents more than a brief television moment. It is a pivot point in how people discuss the modern NBA, how the league honors its legends, and how active superstars define their own legacy while their story is still being written.